Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Online Footprint Project. I'm your host, Ross McFarlane. Thank you so much for investing your time with us here today. If you're from Adelaide, today's guest needs no introduction. However, if you're listening from overseas, then today's guest is the General Manager of Fresh 92.7. So Fresh is actually Adelaide's premier millennial radio station. It's also my favorite radio station. So I wanted to get Troy to come on the show here. So Troy Sincock, thank you very much for coming on the show.
No trouble at all. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So Troy, being a business podcast and everyone listening at home, I'd love to know, it's quite a prominent position you've got here at Fresh, and everyone knows Fresh if you're in Adelaide. So I guess, how did you get started with business, and how did you then, I guess, rise the ranks to get here? Because you've done an amazing job.
It's really interesting when you do a job like I do and had no aspiration to get there in the first place.
Yep.
You look back and went, how the hell did this happen? And ultimately it happened through just doing the things that I love. I suppose my dad was a really well-known cricket player. So I've grown up in an environment where I saw it available to me, to be able to just do what I wanted to do, because that's what he did. And so it just so happened that it ended up being radio for me. When I was at school, I wanted to be an actor. And in year 12, all the teachers from the faculty came around to all the students and said, you need to know there's no job, stop doing this. And I hated that. Yeah, I hated it, because I'd finally found something that I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And particularly coming from a sporting background, to then find the arts, that was a big stretch, because people that play sport at a high level generally are not involved in the arts. In fact, you're criticised if you're supposed to be a certain thing.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, well, what can I do? And then I had a moment where I realised that moderators in school had never said that my acting was any good. And all they'd ever said was that I had a reasonable voice. Now, I wasn't aware of how I sounded at that time, but I thought, what can I do with my voice that might be in that space?
Yeah.
So I did a radio course.
Okay.
And the person that achieved the most in that course had their money refunded, and you got a trophy and all this sort of stuff. And that happened to me. And
congrats.
That's cool. And then basically just sort of put everything in motion. And from that point forward, all I've ever done has been pursued the thing that I wanted to pursue, and by doing that, I've become a real leader. And as a result, people have thought that I would make a good manager.
Okay.
But I don't see myself that way at all. I see myself as a leader.
Yeah.
Who just by default has ended up becoming a general manager.
Well, they're very synonymous. It's very close to one another. Managerial roles are in essence leadership. So, I can really see the closeness there. So,
Sure.
It makes sense to then have a role like this, and to be in radio is awesome. And you're doing a phenomenal job. Fresh is very well known.
Thank you.
That's why I just wanted to get you on the show. And
Right.
It's great fun. So everyone tuning at home, if you've got any questions, obviously if this is on iTunes afterwards, then just send in your questions via email. We'd love to hear from you if you have any questions for Troy. And for everyone in the Niche Entrepreneur Community Facebook group, we will upload this later. Now, I just want to give you a huge shout out for everyone at All Sourced Up. These are the guys filming this today. They do an amazing job. So if you do need any ads for Facebook via, say, Facebook videos or anything like that, hit them up. And I'll make sure in the links at the bottom, I'll put their URL as well. So Troy, that's really cool, man. So, from there, just getting into the arts and then kind of progressing that way. So, how did you first start off in, I guess, your career in radio?
When I got my first job as a result of doing that course, there were many other aspiring radio people doing the course. Some with some talent, some with not so much talent. And but through that, people were already doing some things. And because I won the prize in the course, I think people then opened up opportunities for me, and I started doing community radio. Yeah. And then soon after that, someone that I'd met in community radio got their first job in commercial radio. So the difference being from being a volunteer to then being paid to do the thing that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
This girl who I had befriended got an opportunity, and then got another job. Okay. And then said to her first employer, "Hey, Troy could probably do that." And I'm pretty sure that I'm the only person that they spoke to, and I got my first job in commercial radio when I was 17.
Yeah, wow.
Which is, I look back at that now and go, I don't feel like I know very much now, let alone when I was 17. How the hell did anyone employ me? It's completely ridiculous. And I remember going into that first job, realising that everyone that I was working with were effectively my parents' age.
Yep.
And I had that moment where I'm like, aren't they supposed to be like really mature and know stuff? And I found myself in that space going, I think sometimes I'm a bit more mature, and I think sometimes I know a little bit more stuff. This is really weird.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely, I suppose, just started learning my craft from behind the scenes. And I would say that's probably the greatest gift that I've ever been given, has been the opportunity to be in a space where people who have extraordinary experience and are quite accomplished and have been doing it for a long time, it allowed me just simply to observe what they were doing. Sometimes I wouldn't say I had a mentor in that situation, but I was just able to watch people operating at a very high level every single day. And that stuff just rubs off on you. I think it accelerated my learning.
Oh, it would have, absolutely.
Yeah, I was really thankful that I was dealing with a format that was much older too. So like I said, the people were generally in their 40s and 50s when I was 17. So they had like 20, 30 years experience by the time I was in their company. So I think it would have been a very different experience had I been around much younger people with sort of 5 or 6 years experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Because to level up quicker, it's just surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded, but are higher in, say, their abilities or the skills, and just to learn off them like a sponge is just the best way to level up super quick. So especially at 17, like you're still just learning from everyone, so that's phenomenal. So I think that would have really helped progress things.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. I was just trying to work out who I was as a person, let alone...
Of course, at 17, we're thinking about girls and whatever else that we might not talk about here, but...
Mind you, I didn't have much going with the girls, I can tell you that much, so I just got stuck into the work.
No, that's perfect. So I guess, with community radio, so was that more talkback, or was that more, in essence, doing music? What was the show you had?
Yeah, so when I was involved in commercial radio, I was doing stuff behind the scenes, with aspiring to be on the radio. But simultaneously, I was still doing community radio, which gave me the opportunity to be behind a microphone immediately. So while I was learning my craft in terms of how a business was structured, from the commercial radio perspective, from a community radio perspective, I was beginning to get my chops around, how can I find my own unique voice on the radio. So I was doing music radio on community radio, and eventually amongst my first jobs on commercial radio was talkback. And I can't tell you how overwhelming it is. I will never forget, probably one of the most significant things that happened was that I'd been doing midnight to dawn shifts. Where I was playing older people's music. This is music from the 60s and 70s. I'll never forget that I had to buy, at that time, a thesaurus. And actually, I knew the Beatles and I knew the Beach Boys and no one else. So I'd literally have to go, who are they? I'd flick to the page and go, oh, okay, I vaguely know who they are. I can put some words together around that.
Yeah, cool.
So that was a challenge in itself. But then, the most significant thing that happened to me was that someone was ill and they needed someone to do 6 hours of talkback. Now, I'd never contemplated doing that. I think I figured that it might be a nice thing to do, in my future. I can't tell you how frightening it is for someone to go, hey, in a couple of hours' time, can you just speak to people that you don't know about stuff you have no understanding of for 6 hours? And just make sure you play the ads that you need to play, but just keep on talking and take phone calls.
Fantastic.
And it was it was such an experience of being full of adrenaline. But, weirdly, people actually called. And I had conversations with people. And by the end of the 6 hours, which I thought was going to feel like a marathon, it actually felt like sort of 15 minutes had passed. And you know what? That at the end of that experience was that sense that I could do anything. I mean, I don't know that I've been much more challenged than that in my working life before. I think for most people, just even public speaking is a challenge. But to then speak to this audience of hundreds of thousands of people, and have to keep that thing going. It's a great way to learn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just getting thrown in the deep end there. That was another way to level up. So
absolutely.
Absolutely. So, if you're listening at home and you want to level up quickly, then jump in the deep end.
Definitely.
For sure. So, no, that's really cool. So, I guess from there, with Fresh, now that you're in this position, what is it like to manage such a large, I guess even just a radio station itself, but, Fresh is quite a large station. So, what is it like to sitting on the top there?
It's funny because, when you're doing it, you're just doing it. I don't really see myself the way other people see me. So, when people refer to me as the general manager of a radio station, it's kind of weird for me because all I'm doing is just going to work and doing my job. That's the way that I see it. And I think that my style is very much is one of leadership, where I like to lead from the front, and what I try and do is employ people around me that can do all the things that I don't have the ability to do, and just have them do that, really. So if I employ good people, then the need to manage them is minimised.
Yeah,
they sort of self-manage to some degree. And look, I've certainly got that wrong over time. On occasions, I've picked the wrong people. I'm proud to say that right now the team's outstanding.
Good.
Which is really good. But I think that I don't forget the first day that I got the job at Fresh, and this is the second time that I've worked at Fresh.
Okay.
But the first day I didn't even have a computer, and I was just sitting at a desk going, how do I do this? Other people think that I can do this. I don't know that I can. Where do I start? And because I didn't have a computer, I just took a piece of paper and I just started writing things that I thought could be achieved.
Okay.
And a couple of days later, I got a computer. So that was in the distant past. And it was only when I was packing up my desk that I accidentally found that list again. And I realised on that list I would have accomplished about 70% of those things, and the remaining 30 was stuff that was in motion. And I realised that I didn't need the list to do it. The things I'd written on the list were things that I really embodied, stuff that I saw possible that wasn't necessarily attached to the function of the radio station.
Yeah.
And it was real visionary, sort of long view type stuff. And that's the type of person I am. I'm the type of person that can see what's possible, but I can't get there. I need to have the people around me who go, we can take
the right team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Fresh would never have achieved anything if it was just me coming up with a long-term vision and no one actually being able to get there. So
yeah, of course. Well, I mean, that's part of business. You focus on your own strengths, and then wherever you may not necessarily be lacking, but something that you don't want to focus on, you then have others around you to then focus on that for you. So
yes, absolutely.
And that's part of leadership and management. So
sure.
I completely understand that that's how you get there, and that's what you need to do. So it's obviously you've managed to leverage that very well.
Isn't it funny how, for me, it wasn't so much thinking that I was capable of the job, but it was me seeing what was possible, and it was others telling me that I was capable to do the job. I mean, I seriously would never have picked it as an occupation had people not rallied around me and said, you should do this. I physically, it would have been in my blind spot. I just wouldn't have seen it, and I would have forever wanted to be just a radio announcer.
Yep.
And I can see the contribution that I've been able to make in this role is far greater than it would have been had I just been sitting in a studio by myself every afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I understand. So let's talk a bit about Fresh, because as I said, I'm a big fan of Fresh.
Great.
You guys do some amazing things. So everyone, we're going to be plugging Fresh.
Excellent. Love that.
But let's talk about it. So with Fresh itself, so I mean, with everything that's going on, what do you think is some of the biggest contributors for Fresh to grow to the level that it has?
I think so. Our license is to serve youth and play electronic music.
Yep.
Both things I love. I mean, at the time I was young, and electronic music is my thing. Like, I still DJ and I do all that sort of stuff.
Awesome.
Very much immersed in the culture. I think, what we were always up for, there's this video that was done on the very first day that we got a 24-hour license by the three founders, and the three guys that created the station. Two guys in their early 20s, a guy in his, I think it was 19.
Yeah.
And they effectively took a road trip to Victoria, so interstate.
Okay.
And they knew about a radio station that was there, and they wanted to go and find out about it. It was a station called Hits FM. And it was a radio station that was run by younger people that played pop music, but also played some electronic music. Okay. And at that time, to hear electronic music, you'd have to go to a nightclub. It just wasn't played on the radio. And they literally had that experience, and they drove back and went, Adelaide could probably do with one of those. I mean, it's so ridiculous to think that it was possible. They were so naive that they thought they could pull it off that they actually did.
Yeah, wow.
Like, I think most of us would have seen the barriers, would have seen the paperwork that needed to be filled out, to know that there aren't always licenses available, like the timing had to be right, all those things needed to happen.
Yeah.
And so they got a license, and then eventually got the opportunity to broadcast 24/7.
Cool.
But the guys did this video on the first day where they talked about what they thought was possible. And it was all about that just because we're working with volunteers, or just because it's considered amateur, doesn't mean that the product won't be professional. That if we've all got the drive and the passion, and we're all heading in the same direction, that we can simulate something that's even more meaningful than people that think that they know their stuff, because it's like the audience creating the product.
Yeah.
And so that was what happened on that very first day that we were 24/7. This year, the radio station is 20 years old, and I can tell you that still rings true. So that vision that they had, I'm still following through. That's effectively been the blueprint. A lot of the details have changed over time as the media landscape has changed. Yeah. But all we're trying to do is give young people a voice and the opportunity to create a product which is comparable with media organisations that have far more resources than we do and are paying people much more money. In fact, we don't pay people a lot of the time, except for the 16 staff that I've got. But what we do provide as a result of that is, the opportunity for people to fulfil on their dreams in terms of their career. So if they perform at a high level at Fresh, because we're so on the radar for the industry, people look at us as an incubator of talent. So if you come and volunteer at the radio station and have a great attitude and work hard, you don't have to be the most talented person, but if you have those ingredients, we literally can assist you to take the next step. And you know what it's like in cracking into anything, whether it be business, the arts, or whatever. It's actually getting in that's often harder than what you can do once you're in.
Because it's a very interesting business model to have so many volunteers, but the opportunities for those volunteers is phenomenal, and I know a lot will get free tickets to shows and that sort of thing, and just those little extra incentives really help out. So
definitely,
I think it's really cool, and to only need a set amount of staff. You had 16, was it?
Yeah, that's right. But what I would say, while we have 16 staff, 200 volunteers, the volunteers quite genuinely play a key role in what we do. If all I had was those 16 people, there is no way we could achieve what we do.
Absolutely.
Which I think is why they get jobs, is because they're really up in the business. Whereas if you go to a like uni or a radio school, and then you're applying for a job, you're applying for a job based on the things that you've learned and perhaps not the practical experience of operating within a business. So I think when people employ volunteers from Fresh, they get that they know what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always the paradigm where you either need the experience to get the job, but you need basically, to get in the job to get the experience. So,
exactly right.
It makes it very difficult.
It's true, yeah. It's often the hardest step.
Yeah, of course. So, no, that's phenomenal. So, I guess, with Fresh itself, so with the station, what do you see is next in regards to the growth and what's, up and coming, things like that?
Okay. Well, being 20th year, I think we've always seen that as a bit of a benchmark. I honestly believe...
Yeah, that's huge. That's a big accomplishment for sure.
It is. I think for some reason, though, we've always seen that as a bit of here's an opportunity to kind of look back, be proud of what we've done, but what can we achieve from here on in? It's just always been there for some reason. I honestly believe that we only started getting really good 5 years ago. Because up until that point, the business was largely volunteer driven. Nothing wrong with that, but because there wasn't much leadership. I mean, the people that were employed were doing the best they could. But so, for example, at the very beginning of the radio station, there was one employee. And then slowly over time, we've built to 16. So it's been our ability to be able to employ people over time who have done these jobs professionally, which then provides a new experience for a volunteer. So rather than them just coming in, having freedom, being able to get their rocks off, they're in a scenario where they're actually being mentored and coached to take the next step. Whereas the people that succeeded in the 15 years prior to that, really we're just fortunate to have some people that had real talent, that talent alone could take them onwards. Whereas what we do now, we can literally take someone from nothing, help teach them the skills. Of course, they've got to have a great attitude and they've got to work hard.
Of course, and got to tick all the boxes.
Exactly. But if that happens, we pretty much can give you a job. So we're now in this situation where we have this capacity, that we didn't have previously. But I really get that only gets us so far. So what we're about to do, and I'm really excited about this because, of course, with the way that media is changing, Fresh can be accessed anywhere in the world. While we're here licensed to serve people in our local community, we have an app, we have a web stream. You can listen to Fresh anywhere in the world as long as you have the internet.
And what was that URL?
fresh927.com.au. Get the app. What that allows us to do now is continue to serve the local community, but look at a much broader audience, a national audience, an international audience, and look at what we can do there. So the next step is very much in that space. We're about to undergo an external review. And when you say stuff like that, it always feels a bit it gets all a bit sort of businessy, don't we know it all? The beauty of having that done means that there will be people who are undertaking that process that have global experience.
Of course.
That will see things that we just cannot see. We're operating from our own context here. We think that we see everything. I can almost guarantee you that after this review, people will go, "Oh, do you get that you could do this, this, and this?" And we'll go, our minds will be blown.
Yeah.
And what that will open up for us, I don't know, but certainly it'll be in the digital space somewhere. It might be through partnerships that enable us to get to audiences beyond the local market without compromising the local market.
Yep.
There'll be something there. And you imagine what the experience then is for a volunteer. Instead of you coming from working in an Adelaide radio station and maybe getting a commercial radio job in Adelaide or in a regional area, may mean the opportunity would be that you could get a job overseas.
Yeah,
or something like
endless.
that. Yeah, so that's really what we're trying to open up.
Cool, and that will certainly just help everyone level up a lot quicker as well, and help Fresh level up a lot quicker too. So
yeah, why would you not come and
hours.
volunteer at Fresh if you knew that opportunity was available to you? I mean, it'll be a no-brainer. People just have to come to Fresh. Well, that's what we want to create anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've certainly done a very fantastic job at that culture as well. So there's, as you said, 200 volunteers is just phenomenal. So
yeah,
for 200 people willing to come in and volunteer is just great. So
what's remarkable is, of course, we generally have 200 at any one time. That's because there's always people coming in and people going out.
Of course,
so over time, that's been many thousands of volunteers. But I like to think that they walk away with an experience, whether it be a job. Some people don't come here for a job; they just come here to be part of something that they love.
A community, basically.
That's right. If you've made a friend. I think that's a wonderful outcome as well. But often people will end up working together in all sorts of capacities.
Yeah.
It might just be like, for example, one of our founding members is an accountant. There is a number of people that work or volunteer at the radio station who he's doing their tax at the end of the day.
Yeah,
so
beautiful.
It's just stuff like that. And if he's introduced to someone via Fresh, he looks after them.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
That's cool. Yeah, and that's the thing. With that community network that you've got, and what Fresh has built, then everyone can, in essence, help each other out and do different things, and that's really cool. So I guess, with this whole, going potentially international. I mean, is there anything you're able to share with us today on that, or is it all still a little, in the works at this stage?
Yeah, it's very much in the works. But I think
understandable.
If you take a look at how people are growing up now, I was just out at a northern suburb of Adelaide, Elizabeth, where they're doing a lot of work with the city of Playford, this organisation called Northern Sound System, which is effectively taking kids from low socio-economic backgrounds and providing these opportunities for them to be really creative, and then that becoming a pathway for people's careers, rather than it being, I've got to work for the local car manufacturer or something like that.
Yeah.
And these people are expressive. They often come from different cultural backgrounds. They've got their backs up against the wall. They've got really something to prove and something to say.
Yeah.
And you can see what opportunities exist for them because of the world that they're in. Like these people, I remember chatting to a number of them after I visited a couple of weeks ago, and just asked them what they were doing. And they're sort of downplaying the fact, I want to be a social influencer, or I'm doing videos, or I'm making music. Everyone in the group of what they were doing, about 30 people, were contributing in some way in that space creatively.
Cool.
And I followed up a few of the people afterwards thinking, it'd be nice that, they might have 1,000 followers. People had tens of thousands of followers.
Yeah.
And they were only the age that they were with what tools that they had. I mean, it's so exciting to think what they might be doing. So you imagine those people beginning to volunteer at the radio station. So they come with their own pre-existing audiences.
Exactly.
And what the sum total of that might mean, I mean, I honestly don't know. But what I do know is us doing this now has potential to just blow the lid off the thing. These people as individuals already have international audiences.
Yeah.
And I think it will be the people themselves that will enable the radio station to take that next step.
Absolutely. Just the state of the internet at the moment is just crazy that you can do that. Even right now, just to, having thousands of people listen to this.
Yes.
That it, really back in the day, you would have had to have, gone through your steps where you have had to, get a course or, learn from a body of education, and then from there actually get positions in radio. Whereas I was just like, screw it, I fancy having, I want to share with an audience, my perspectives, and I want to share other people's perspectives in business. And so it just kind of organically happened, and it's been great fun. But the way the internet, that wouldn't have been able to be facilitated if we weren't where we are today. So it's phenomenal. So, for all those people that, are in the lower socioeconomic areas, but they do have followings and they're starting to become influencers as such, and people start to look up to them, then that helps them, but then also helps others. So I guess with Fresh itself, so for us to wrap this up in the next few minutes, just because I'm aware that we're running out of time here. So I imagine you're a very busy man. So, do you want to tell us a bit about, say, being a fresh mate or anything else that is available to the listeners there at home?
Yeah, being a fresh mate means that you are one of the biggest fans of the radio station. So it means that you're basically putting your money where your mouth is. It only costs you something like $30 a year.
Yep.
And we provide you with discounts and opportunities to join us at parties that other people might not be able to access, cheaper merchandise, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So that's one way you can support, and we really appreciate those that do that.
Yep.
There are some people that just don't want to get actively involved in the radio station. But what I do want to say is that you can get involved in the radio station, and if you think that there's a barrier to that, the only barrier is yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you have a great attitude and you're willing to work hard, you don't need to know anything about radio or media, but you can come here with that, and anything is possible. So we want to have as many younger people involved, and when I say younger, there are people in their mid-50s that volunteer at the radio station who started at the very beginning, and have real value to the radio station as mentors. So don't be at home going, "Oh, I'm 26, I'm too old for this." Okay. Join us and at least make the inquiry and see if it fits. Come along to an info session, and we'll help you work out whether there is a space for you in the organisation.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, that's fantastic. Well,
Cool.
Troy, thank you so much for your time for coming on. It's been absolutely phenomenal. So if you've got any questions for Troy or for Fresh, then please write in and let us know. So Troy, I really appreciate your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, it's been a great experience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.